Good morning, good evening, and welcome everyone to Sentence Correction webinar in which we are going to talk about how is it that you can build your skills in sentence correction to attain that 90th percentile ability so that you can get to your target score. Welcome everyone. My name is Payal Tandon. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT. In this session, you will learn how to get on that path to scoring 90th percentile in GMAT sentence correction using the meaning-based approach, the breakthrough approach that we invented back in 2011. The approach that is responsible for every 3 out of 5 successes that are published on GMAT Cloud. Right now, we are in the third edition of that process, each iteration making it possible for more and more students to build their core skills to get to that 90th percentile. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about you, and the rest of the session will be obviously geared around what is it that you need in order to attain that 90th percentile in SC. Now, I believe that a number of you would have already gone through the free trial. Can you please press yes if you have experienced the free trial? We offer about 5 to 10% of our entire course offering in the free trial so that you can experience the kind of learning that we impart through our platform so that you can see if we are the right fit for your GMAT preparation tool. Okay. How many of you have experienced the diagnostic that you took before you or when you registered for the webinar? Okay, what did you think of the diagnostic? Were the results that you got pretty much indicative of what is it that you lack in, or where you faltered in your approach to solving that question? And definitely type your answers in the chat pod over here down below. And again, that those identifying those faltering points, understanding why is it that when you're answering a question, you're making those mistakes. Those those key insights are what take you to that next level in your prep. So definitely, if you haven't experienced the diagnostic, definitely do that, and I will share the link as well for that. Okay. Now, every weekend we conduct these webinars through which we essentially impart those amazing learnings to you. And let me bring back that pane so that you can see that as well. Give me 1 second here. Upcoming webinars. Okay, let me go back to this pane here. Yes, here they are. So tomorrow we are going to be talking about number properties. So definitely, if you haven't as yet registered for this webinar, definitely click on the register now button over here. And then next Saturday will be dedicated to how is it that you should prepare your GMAT study plan in order to get to that target score of yours. And again, believe me, there's a whole lot of complicated computations, estimations that go into what your study plan should be. And again, we have done that. We have done all of that hard work for you. All you need to do is put in what your current abilities are, put in what is your target score, and we give you the entire study plan. So if you haven't as yet registered for this webinar, definitely click on register now button here to register for it. Okay, I'm going to change the pane here shortly. All right, now I am going to let's open the podium to getting to know each other a little better. So let's start talking. Tell me where are you guys from? Just tell the country or the city, and then say hello to one another. United States, India, Israel. Okay, India. So Qatar. Okay. All right. Pakistan. Very nice. Welcome everybody. Okay, now, how long have you guys been preparing for the test? So type that in. If you've just started, you can just say just started, 2 weeks, okay? 3 months, 4 months, about to start, okay? Well, regardless of wherever you are at in your study prep, you will stand to gain extreme amount of information from this session. So good, whether you've been preparing for 4 months or just started, you are at the right place, okay? So good, very nice. Now, what is your current SC ability? And I'm going to bring this poll here so that you can put that information. All right, what's your current SC ability? And if you don't know how to estimate your SC ability, select that choice. That's absolutely fine. And this is not your accuracy in SC, okay? I'm asking ability. Okay, so let's get some more people to respond here. All right. So I see that um, there are quite a few people who are actually more than half of the class is below 75th percentile. All right. Then, so you have equal number of students below 50th percentile and between 50th and 75th percentile. And actually, quite a few students, one almost a third of the class, doesn't know how to estimate SC ability. Very, that's absolutely fine. So let's talk about how is it that you can estimate your SC ability. And those of you who know, who are confident about their SC ability, well and good. And those of you who are not confident, you guys can also confirm your SC ability and get a more reliable estimate of that. And I'm going to teach you how you can do that, because it's very important to know what your starting point is so that you understand how much effort and what kind of effort you need to make. For example, people who are above 75th percentile and whose aim is to get to 90th percentile, they will work on very different set of tasks starting today versus people who are below 50th percentile. And in fact, even people who are between 50th and 75th percentile, their study plan is going to look very different. And we're going to talk about all of that in this session, okay? But first and foremost, how is it that you can determine your SC ability using Sigma X Mock? That's what we're going to talk about. You need to use Sigma X Mock in order to get a very reliable estimate of your SC ability. Why does it give you very reliable estimate? Because of multiple factors. First one, instead of typical three difficulty levels that are there in the mocks that are adaptive, Sigma X Mock has five difficulty levels. Okay, instead of being question dependent, instead of just reacting on how you performed in the previous question, that the way majority of the mocks work that are there in the industry, Sigma X Mock works on block level adaptability. It takes up, it figures out what your accuracy was in the previous block of questions. It takes all of that into consideration along with along with five different sectional abilities that it tracks. Okay, so it has five independent ability engines, right? And it is block adaptable, so it's mirrored along the logic of the actual GMAT test. And that is why when you take the Sigma X mock, you get a very reliable estimate of your SC ability, CR ability, RC ability, and your arithmetic and algebra geometry ability. Okay, so again, good news is you don't have to be a student at e-GMAT to take this mock. We offer one mock free of charge to everybody. So if you haven't already done so, click on this link, take free mock, and bookmark this so that you can take the mock and get a reliable estimate. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next question here. My next question is, oh, I forgot to broadcast the results here. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, I'll be sure to broadcast the results from now on. Okay. Now, next one here. What is the most important sentence correction skill? Okay, that is your next question. Now, what I want you to think about is that um, if you are stuck, or if people are stuck at 60th percentile or below, why do you think people are stuck there? Okay, that is what I want you to answer. All right, so let's get some more responses here. All right. Amazing. I am so happy to see that almost all of you are believe that understanding the intended meaning is the most important SC skill. You guys are making my job very easy. Thank you for that. All right, so very good. You guys already understand that part. I'm so happy. Believe me, up until a few years ago, people would be simply saying, knowing grammar rules, that's the most important thing. But over the years, things have changed. Things have been changing quite a bit. So that's really good. Seems that people are getting the message that we have been trying, that is the true message behind sentence correction section. Okay, so very important. Understanding the intended meaning is the most critical thing. Now the next thing is, you understand that, but do you understand it enough that you have incorporated the method, you have internalized the method, that you know what does it mean to give intended meaning the most importance? Okay, that is the next thing that we're going to talk about. Okay, so For this, I want you to look at the question on the screen here. While solving an SC question, what percentage of time do you spend on analyzing choice A? Okay. And again, you can assume that you spend 90 seconds on the question. And what I want you to now answer is, what percentage of your time do you spend on looking at choice A without looking at the answer choices? So before you look at the answer choices, okay, what percentage of time do you spend on choice A? Okay, well and good. And thank you. You guys are responding very well. All right, so let's talk about this. Look at the results here. Um, how what 70%, okay, 64% of the class spends, actually let me, spends less than 40%. Okay, in fact, if I the right answer over here is, you need to spend majority of your time on looking at the original choice before you take a look at any of the answer choices. So only 15% of class, that is people who have selected choices D and E, 50% to 70% and more than 70%, only 15% of the class today spends more than 50% of their time on analyzing choice A. So that is the aspect that we need to shift. Okay, good, very good that you guys understand that intended meaning is so very critical. Thumbs up on that. How is it that you bring that understanding so that you can now put it into action? That is what I'm going to focus on in this session. Okay, so you know the motive of this session. I need you to spend more than 50% of your time on original choice, and I'm going to prove to you why that is the case. How is it that you can do that in the timed environment of the test? Because I know right now a lot of you would be thinking, 85% of you would be thinking, how am I going to solve the question if I spend majority of my time on just a single choice? We are going to talk about that. Okay, so good. We have our goals set out for us. Now, next one is that I want to understand, how is it that you're preparing today so that I can give you feedback on that aspect as well. Okay, so let's get some more responses here. All right. So I see that 40% of the class is using e-GMAT course. So welcome. My next question is to be will be targeted towards you, asking you how much of the e-GMAT course you've done. Then I see another very major segment, almost one third of the class is practicing questions on GMAT Club. We will talk about that. Okay. I want to make sure that you are practicing questions in the right way, that you're using the core skills focused approach. And we will talk about that in detail. Okay. Another prep course, so about 20%, 21% of you are using another prep course. Again, as long as you're applying the core skills focused approach, okay, that is the most important thing. So my second goal for this session is to help you understand what kind of core skills you need to build so that you can catapult your ability in SC to where it is, to 90, above 90th percentile. So we'll talk about that, and then you are the ones to figure out and take the right decision for yourself. Okay. All right, so my, as I said, my next question is going to be, okay, well, okay, so actually, let me ask my next question. I don't know where the slide went. So, how much of the e-GMAT course have the e-GMAT students done? So this question is only for e-GMAT students. Okay. So tell me if you haven't as yet started your course, that's fine. So again, 40% of the class, which who are e-GMAT students, and welcome everyone here. So tell me, how much of the e-GMAT course have you finished? All right, so let's see. Some of you have just started, just finished master comprehension, and you can see this is in the sequence in which you should be doing your SC prep. All right, so verb tenses done. So people who have just started or not as yet started, again, you're at the right place. Those of you who are midway in their SC prep, right, which means that let's say you've finished till verb tenses, or even till parallelism, you guys will get to know whether you're preparing the right way or not, whether you're applying the right skills or not. Okay. And there are a lot of stuff that goes into how is it that you're preparing, what habits are you demonstrating. Okay. Both from when you are experiencing an application file, for example, to how is it that you are analyzing your test results, how is it that you're doing reviews. So we'll be talking a lot about that as well. And again, e-GMAT students, at any time, if you have any question with regards to your prep, with regards to subject matter, again, you have forums, so definitely utilize that amazing opportunity that you have. And then if you have any questions with regards to your prep, write to us at support@e-gmat.com. We are there to help you out. Okay. So, all right, now let's move on to our next slide here. What are we going to gain? We have already talked about that. e-GMAT students, you will understand all the winning behaviors that you need to demonstrate in order to get to 90th percentile. We want to make sure that every minute that you spend on the platform, every minute takes you towards your in the right direction towards your target GMAT score, right? So you're going to learn a lot about that in this session. People who are not as yet e-GMAT students, as I said, I want you guys to know what the core skills focused approach is. What are the skills that you need to develop, okay? So that whatever prep material you're using, you use that prep material judiciously, okay? Now, how to use forums, Narayan, definitely write to us at support, and we will tell you how to use forums, okay? Okay, now a few housekeeping tips. Oh, okay, here's the question that appeared. A few housekeeping tips. If you have any questions for me, post them in the Q&A pod over here, because again, if you have questions for me, which I may not be able to answer those if you post them in the chat pod. Okay, so any questions that you have which I'm not, which is not directly linked with what I'm talking about, post those in the Q&A pod, so that I can take those every now and then whenever I have a pause point during the presentation. Okay. And again, you've already experienced, I asked lots and lots of questions, so be as active as you have been. If you want to be more active, definitely I would welcome that. Okay, now let's talk about what does it take to achieve that 90th percentile in SC? There are two things. One is that you answer questions with high accuracy. Okay, accuracy is important. Second is that you answer questions quickly. And again, some of you may be thinking, I'll just said that we have to spend majority of your time on one answer choice. Then how is she going to get us there? Believe me, we will get there. That is how our students account for every 3 out of 5 success story on GMAT Club is by an e-GMATer. Okay, so we are going to accomplish both of these. If you have to get to that 90th percentile, as you learn from this session, you will gain the tools to get there. To be able to answer questions with high accuracy and answer questions correctly. Okay, so again, we've already gone through this part here. Now, yes, I said we have to answer questions quickly, but in this session, I'm not going to put any timing constraint on you. Why? Because right now we are all learning. Okay. So what I'm going to do instead is time you as a group. Okay. By that, what I mean is that every time I give you a question, once 70% of the class has put in the answers, okay, I will give you either a 15-second warning or a 30-second warning, depending upon the complexity level of the question. So let me just show you what does answering a question mean here. So we're going to be solving 4 questions, okay, difficult questions. So when you see the question pod here, the first thing I want you to do is click on still solving. This tells me, out of the 80 some people in this session, how many of you are actively engaged in marking the answer for this question, right? So that I base my 70% off of this number over here. Okay, so can you all please click on still solving here on your screen? Good. So this should become your go-to thing as soon as you see a question pod. Okay, and believe me, it will become a second nature right from the second question onwards. Okay, so let's get this number to at least 55, 60, if not more. Yeah, so let's get this number up. Okay, and then so I'm going to show the first question. So take your time solving the question. Understand the meaning very well, and then look at the answer choices. Okay. And then we're going to do a detailed discussion on the question. Needless to say that. Okay. All right. So let's get going here. Here is your first question on the screen. And I'm going to remove the chat pod while you are answering questions. Okay. Okay. Last 15 seconds. Okay. I'm going to end the poll now, and I'm broadcasting the results here. What did you make of this question? Interesting question, easy question. Not a clue. Both interesting and easy. Okay, easy. All right. What do you think is the correct answer choice looking at the responses here? Now, looking at the responses, so if you were to, if you saw these stats over here, right? Um, what do you think is the correct answer here? Majority of the students have so 39% is have selected choice E, right? Okay, so interesting. Let's talk about it. Great question to learn from. Absolutely right. Okay, so let's understand this. What's the first thing that you see in this question here? Last part is very confusing. Yes, there are two aspects to this question, and we are going to talk about both the aspects. Okay. Um, is first of all, I want to ask you, is there a comparison in this question? Less by than, absolutely. Now, because there is a comparison over here, it's very clear that choices A and B cannot be the correct answers. Why? Because you have uh, less by than, after that by is missing, right? So that is why choices A and B are wrong. So 15 of you who selected choices A and B, that's the feedback for you. You did not focus, amongst other things, right? You did not focus on the parallelism aspect of it. There is a comparison. That is why, absolutely, we can say it's also because of parallelism, because comparison is a kind of parallelism, right? So yes, so that is why choices A and B are incorrect. Okay. So Next, let's come to our next thing over here. How many of you were confused between among choices C, D, and E? Back and forth, a lot of back and forth, which one is correct? Choice C is weird, by the coming to an end. That's a very weird choice. By ending, that seems interesting. By the end of that seems very precise, so E should be the correct answer. How many of you went through that kind of thought process? C and E, absolutely. Just between C and E. Absolutely. Now, when that happens, that is an indication. Whenever you, and again, this is, I want you to it, write this note down. Whenever you're solving questions and you get to a point wherein you are debating in your head that, this one looks good, this one looks a little weird, right? That kind of thought process, as if you see yourself, if you catch yourself in that kind of thought process, that's a red flag. Okay, because none of this is very deterministic. Okay, something is weird is very indeterministic. If by the end of, if you're caught between two choices and you're saying this looks good, this kind of doesn't look good, then you haven't, that's a signal even before you select your choice that there is something wrong in your thought process. And that kind of feedback, when you are in practice mode, that kind of feedback is really very important. Okay, so I want you to make a note of it. Okay, because that, again, when you're in practice mode, mark the choice, but then now before you even start looking at the solution, you already know that there was something missing in the way I approached this question. So now when you start looking at the solution, you start looking at the solution with the right lens. Okay, so e-GMAT students, keep that in mind as you are reviewing the detailed solutions that you see in every question. Okay, so check what your thought process was when you were answering the question. Okay, now, let's come to what's going on in this question, right? Um, the most important thing for this, to answer this question correctly, was to visualize the meaning of coming to an end. What does coming to an end actually mean? Okay, and you're going to see me repeat this word visualize a lot in this session. Okay, and you will see why that is the case. Okay, now here's the sentence. Okay, essentially what's happening over here is that there is X is influenced more by Y. So overall slackening of growth and productivity is influenced more by what is Y over here? The coming to an end of a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity. Okay. So let's understand this Y, because that is what the coming to an end signifies here, right? Now let's take a scenario over here. Let's assume that the rapid growth rate means that the growth rate is above this 5% level. So you see this dotted line over here, right? And let me get my pen going. Is Oh, sorry about that. What did I do? uh 1 second here. I clicked on the wrong button here. Sorry about that. Okay, so this line over here signifies anything above this line is rapid growth rate. Okay, now um visualize this. For a certain period of time, the growth rate was, let's say, 8%, and it even went up to, let's say, about 8.4%, right? And then it started to come down at this point. Okay, but it was still over here, till over here, it was still above the growth rate, right? But it actually started coming down from this point onwards, right? Now, finally, when it reached point C, that is when it actually dropped down to below what the growth rate is considered as a good growth rate, right? So, really, at point C, this period of rapid growth rate, this period ended. Okay. But the process of this period ending started at this point B. So, really, what choice A expresses is this period from B to C. Okay, so that is what the sentence is saying, that this X is impacted by this entire period, right? And again, you can consider B to be from this point, but the point over here is that it's not this time period. It is not this point that the choice is talking about. Choice A is not talking about point C. Choice A is instead talking about this entire time span, the time span that started when the decline started to happen. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Now think about this. If you, let's say this was a real life scenario, and it very well could be a real life scenario, and you misunderstood that X will get influenced only when this metric hits point number C, then your decisions would be very different as compared to if you truly understood that the starting point of this period was actually point B. Okay. And think about all the opportunity that you would have lost had you misunderstood this cause and effect. And that is exactly what is happening over here. And that is the level of visualization that you need to do. Okay. Now, I know a number of you rejected choice C, thinking that coming to an end just looks a little weird, right? And that's what the results indicate over here, right? A number of you went with, a majority of the class went with, by the end of, right? Which means you went with point C instead of that entire period. Okay. So very, very important to understand what is the original choice telling you. And this is the reason why we say that you need to spend majority of your time on choice A so that you can extract every single aspect from it, because those aspects are what you will use to evaluate the other answer choices. In this case, from the original sentence, the way the answer choices were worded, you simply needed to extract two aspects. One was the comparison, right? And the other was, so one was the comparison over here, and the other was visualizing the meaning coming to an end. Definitely, visualizing the meaning of the coming to an end was the main faltering point over here in this question. Is this point clear? Do you guys understand why it is so important to spend that much amount of time on the original choice? Because this is very, very critical. Okay. So, if you develop this core skill, and visualizing is number one core skill that you need to develop. Okay. As soon as as soon as you see your core skill of visualize becoming a real habit, you will start to see that you can answer questions with high accuracy, and you can answer questions quickly. Okay. And the entire e-GMAT course is built around how is it that you can visualize properly. Okay. Now, and again, avoiding that back and forth, that is very, very critical. Okay. Very, very important. Okay. Now, let's talk about what does it mean to visualize. Okay. Visualization, as I said, is the key to understanding the meaning of the sentence. And now I'm going to take a bit of a segue over here. What you see on the screen is a passage from a very simply written book. It's an abridged version, so not very complex vocabulary or not very complex sentence structure. It's from Black Beauty, a classic by Anna Sewell. So my 8-year-old daughter was actually reading this book, and as she got this book as her literature study, right? So as she was reading this book, she was reading it out to me, and I was like, there is so much of visualization over here, and I want you guys to experience that. Okay. And the reason why I want you to understand this aspect is, why am I showing you an abridged version kind of sentences that you will not see on the GMAT, because GMAT is way higher level? Why I'm showing this to you is because it's important to understand that the habit of the core skill of visualization, that's not just limited to GMAT. Okay. This is a life skill that you should build, because that's going to help you across the board. Okay. This is a life skill that my daughter is learning, right? And that's a life skill that we teach through the e-GMAT course. Okay. So I want you to spend some time on this, read this passage, and then as you're reading this passage, tell me the kind of processing you were intuitively doing in your head. So I'm going to shut up for 15 seconds. Read this passage. All right. So done reading? Yes, no? How many of you were able to visualize different things from this? First, there was a large gate, then there was a smooth road, there were big trees on both sides of the road, then there was a house and gardens, and then there was a small field with fence with apple orchard and stables near this orchard, right? I didn't really have to show you that passage again. This was a picture that you drew in your head automatically as you were reading that, right? Everyone with me? Everyone did that? This is called visualization. Okay. And I believe that we do have the skill in us, right? Because we have grown up reading. Again, you may not be very avid reader, but you must have read such kind of passages in your life, in your student journey, right? During your undergrad. So we do have the skill, but somewhere that skill is buried inside of us. Somehow students just stop doing that when they start reading these complex passages, these sentences, these paragraphs in SC. Okay, they just stop doing that because they feel that they are under pressure of answering the question, so they need to apply those shortcuts. How many of you feel that way? In your regular reading you may do such kind of visualization, but when it comes to actually answering questions on the GMAT, you kind of feel that you have to change something. And that's the very wrong approach. Okay, so when you're reading fiction books, yes, because you want to extract those scenes from your fiction books, but that same core skill needs to be applied. You have to use that same muscle when you're reading non-fiction as well, which means when you're reading your GMAT passages. Okay, and that is the rigor that the e-GMAT course will develop. Okay, will inculcate in you, or will reignite in you. Okay, why? The way which you visualize this, that's very same muscle needs to be used to visualize a complex looking sentence that we saw in question 1. Is this point clear? Okay, and how do we do that? Throughout the e-GMAT course, we have, even from the simplest of sentences. For example, you read this sentence here: arranging rare exotic flowers in a symmetric pattern, Mary made a beautiful bouquet. We didn't really have to use these visual cues over here. But why do we use these visual cues? Why we use these visual cues? So that we, from the get-go, you start to make those connections in your head, so that even when you don't see these kinds of visual cues explicitly on the screen, when you're not doing the e-GMAT course, you will automatically start doing that because you've gotten so used to seeing it through the e-GMAT course. Okay, again, this is from the very basics of the concepts over here, kept on the topmost shelf of rack 11, and this is from our correcting modifier errors concept file. Okay, Keats wrote these books. Now, we didn't really have to show Keats sitting on the bookshelf, right? It's not our pastime to actually express things like this, although we thoroughly enjoy it. So my team definitely enjoys it. But the point of this is all of that is done with an intent. The intent is to develop that habit in you, develop that muscle in your mind, develop that core skill of visualization. Okay, so everything is geared around that. And that doesn't stop with easy sentences. That continues on with the complex sentences that you see in application files. Here, as you're reading the sentence, we do all of this graphics. We essentially chart out the entire sentence. This is called the sentence structure. And then we show the entire gist of the sentence in a graphic form, again, in order to build that muscle in your head, in order to build that core skill. Okay, and that is what we mean by the core skills based approach. So as I said, whatever method you're using to prepare, whatever course work you're doing, if you're using GMAT Club to practice questions, again, make sure that whatever time you're spending, that time is being spent in building these core skills. The first core skill of visualization. Okay, and there are multiple ways in which core skills will be built. One is by doing that visual representation of the question, so that you can start to do that on your own. The second will be, as again, we are going to get into that with the next question. Okay, so again, keep this in mind. Words need to come to life. And I want you to write these tidbit sentences so that you can internalize those. Words are always tell you a story. Make them tell you the story. Okay. Don't shut your mind off thinking, oh, this is not something that interests me. Right? Be invested in that. Okay. As soon as you start to consider words to tell you a story, you will start to see that difference, because you will then automatically start to visualize it, and the course helps you do that. e-GMAT students, would you like to add over here? Have you experienced this kind of visualization as you've gone through the e-GMAT course? Good, very nice. All the concept files, application files, they look pretty, right? But there is a reason behind them being pretty, right? Yes, um, aesthetics are very important, but there is an underlying principle behind all of that. Absolutely, not just for GMAT prep, but in daily aspects for life. Absolutely. Okay, good. Thank you very much, guys. All right, so now again, let's keep that in mind. What is it that we need to do to get to 90th percentile? High answer questions with high accuracy, answer questions quickly. Okay, and how does the e-GMAT meaning based approach help? By visualizing learning, right? You visualize the meaning of the sentence so that you can you can reject incorrect answer choices confidently, and you reduce that back and forth. That is how you increase your accuracy and you reduce the time to answer. Okay, all right. So, and again, it's important to see what other people talk about. If you don't have your meaning correct, and this is a student who got V47, then it's like hammering your head against the wall. And I absolutely love this comparison over here, right? Obviously, if you don't understand the meaning, you would feel as if you don't even know how to approach that, right? It might work for a weak structure, and this is something which is very important. A lot of students, especially students who practice questions, okay, they'll start practicing with easier questions, and that's the right thing to do. And because they don't have anybody guiding them in terms of what is the right method to use, their brute force method works well for easier questions. And that's by design, because those questions are easy. So those questions will not have all those vectors that would be present in a difficult question. So their brute force approach works well on easier questions, but as soon as they get to solving difficult questions, they falter. But what they end up thinking is, I was able to, my accuracy was really good with easy medium, but now my accuracy has dropped. But they don't know the reason behind that. Okay, the reason behind that is they don't have a structured process to solve questions. Okay, so it's very important to, and what does that structured process mean? Those core skills that you need to build. Okay, again, not a surprise that 3 out of 5 700 plus scores that are posted on GMAT Club are by e-GMAT students, because they build their core skills, their visualizing muscle. Okay, that's the whole reason behind it. So none of these stats seem to be, wow, how is that even possible? That's the very nature of the course that makes these results possible. And it's not just that, the approach of teaching. There's a lot of other stuff that goes over here, right? There's study plan, there's real time feedback that every GMAT student gets every 10 minutes, right? There are improvement plans which we put together. If you have to go from, let's say, 70th percentile in SC to 90th percentile, you write to our support team and we give you those highly specific improvement plans. Okay, and every time you write to our support team, you either get a video response or you get a detailed email specific to you. Okay, nothing cookie cutter comes out, and the amazing analytics that we have in Scholaranium. So again, very, very important. And again, over the years, as we have built our platform, for example, in 2019, we contributed to only 20% of all success, which by itself was a very important thing. Why? Because there were 11 other partners. So we had a pretty big share of success on GMAT Club. But since 2019, as we started to offer extreme amount of personalization through our courses, that number went up to 60% in 2021, and we've continued to maintain that lead in 2022 and 2023 this year. And how are we able to do that? That's through the personalized study plan that we offer, and I'm going to talk about that in detail. So every time, as I said, you get real time feedback as you're going through this, as you're going through the course, right? So again, everything that we have built, that is what has led to the results that our students, that we are very proud of, and that's because of the success that our students demonstrate. Okay, now I want you to click on this link over here, why you need a personalized GMAT study plan. Okay, and I want you to bookmark that and read through it. Watch the recording over here. That's a 10-minute recording, but that's going to tell you what is the significance of a personalized study plan. And believe me, this plan has existed for such a long time, but every time, people start to prepare, they don't believe, they go for those, 2 month study plan, 3 month study plans. No, somebody asked me the question, right, early on, how much time do I need to spend in order to get to my target score of 740? That depends on where you're at right now. That depends upon what your strengths are, so that you can capitalize on those strengths. That depends on what kind of weaknesses you have, right? So it may take you 15 days, it may take you 3 months, but it should not take you more than 3 months. Okay, so that's very important. So the link is not opening. Okay, let me get you the link. Give me 1 second here. Or as you answer the next question, so I'm going to give you the link then. Okay. So, all right. So all of this will be in your packet. So let's get to our next question now. Okay. So, I'm going to find the link while you answer this next question. Sorry about that. Let me open. Okay. All right. Click on still solving. Okay. All right. Here's the question. Okay, last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So, how was this question? By the way, the link for the personalized study plan is right up there. So you can click on that and bookmark that link. So this one was tough. How many of you got stumped by the sentence structure? Didn't understand the meaning? Okay. Tricky. Nice one. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. Now, this is a pretty involved sentence structure. What do I mean by that? There is a lot going on over here. Okay. And this is where the second way of visualizing comes about, which is through sentence structure. Okay. Um, some of the students had mentioned master comprehension course. Okay, that course is the basic foundation course that everybody who starts off with verbal prep needs to go through. Okay, and what do we teach in that basic the output of that basic foundation course, master comprehension course, is the ability of you taking a complex sentence like this, taking an involved sentence like this, and simplifying it, breaking it down into a sentence structure so that you simplify the seemingly complex sentence with the intent to extract all the aspects of the meaning from it. Okay, so certainly I will not be able to teach you, I cannot teach you the entire sentence structure approach here. For that we have the master comprehension course, but let me show you the output of that. Okay, although appearing less appetizing than most of their round and red supermarket cousins, I break my sentence there. Heirloom tomatoes, there is a definite pause after this, right? So I break my sentence there. Grown from seeds saved during the previous year. Now observe that I have done an indentation here, right? Because I know in my mind I am making those connections that this part of the information, grown from seeds saved during the previous year, is giving me some additional information about heirloom tomatoes, right? So I have indented that inside. So that is the power of making that sentence structure in my head as I'm reading the sentence. Okay, and I'm pausing while I'm reading the sentence. Okay, they are often green and striped or have plenty of bumps and bruises. So there are two aspects to it, right? One was that they are grown from seeds saved during the previous year. Second thing is over here that these heirloom tomatoes, they are so this part is simply describing the visual look of the heirloom tomatoes. Okay, heirlooms are more flavorful and thus an increasing demand, and that is the high level thing which the author is trying to communicate. So there's a lot of information packed in this sentence, right? Now, how do you extract when you have created this kind of sentence structure? Do you think if the sentence was provided to you in this visual manner, you would have been able to understand the meaning of this sentence a lot better? Tell me that. Compare this sentence versus this look. Okay, would it be easier to understand the meaning of the broken down sentence as compared to when it's put together? Absolutely. And that is why you break the sentence down into a sentence structure, and that is a skill that you need to build. And again, I'll tell you how we make that possible through the e-GMAT course. Okay, now let's extract all the meaning from it, all the aspects of the meaning. What kind of tomatoes appear less appetizing? Tell me that. Write the answer. What kind of tomatoes appear less appetizing? Heirloom tomatoes, or we can call them HT, right? Second, what does green and striped or have bumps and bruises imply? What does this imply? Why has the author mentioned this? That they're ugly. Absolutely. Not appetizing. Absolutely. So this part is explaining why heirloom tomatoes, what does the author mean by the heirloom tomatoes appear less appetizing? Okay, then next one, what are green and striped? Obviously heirloom tomatoes, we already answered that. And what are more flavorful? Tell me that. In the sentence there is a comparison. What are more flavorful? Heirloom tomatoes. Okay, now next one, what is the contrast? Does the sentence present a contrast? Now, what is the contrast? Tell me that. Contrast, well, think about it. Demand, yes. I still don't have the complete. Yes, Shubham is absolutely spot on. Tanvi, absolutely spot on. Appearance versus flavor. Renal, absolutely spot on. Appearance versus flavor. That is what the contrast is. They look ugly, but they are flavorful. Okay. Now, people who have said contrast is between heirloom tomatoes and their cousins. No, that's not right. That is the comparison. The author is comparing the visual look of heirloom tomatoes with that of the supermarket cousins. But the contrast is in terms of the flavor of the heirloom tomatoes versus the look of the heirloom tomatoes. That is what the contrast is. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, all right, though I haven't completed yet, the core, I can say confidently, master comprehension works. It helps you with meaning and pausing styles while reading any sentence. Absolutely, thank you so much, Vinay. That really means a lot. And I'm very happy. This is a chance that I get to interface with the GMAT students, and when they tell me that the intent behind which we created something, that intent is being served, that is really the biggest prize for us. Definitely your success is the next big thing. Okay, all right, so coming back to this question, um, so again, identifying what the contrast is very, very important. Okay, and you can do that very confidently if you are able to create the sentence structure. Now, some of you may be thinking that, do I create the sentence structure in my head, or do I need to write down all of this stuff? Again, these are learning phases. In the test environment, once you are ready, once your ability is at 90th percentile, you will not need to write down the sentence structure, because in your head you will be able to do that. But when you're starting off, my rule of thumb is that, if you do this dedicated exercise, okay, exercise with an intent to take 20 long sentences and create their sentence structures. Okay, the 21st sentence that you take, you will be able to do that in your head. Okay, but again, you have to do that dedicated exercise. Okay, and we have these two quizzes in master comprehension course in which we make you do that dedicated exercise. Okay, all right, so let's come to the next step here. So we have understood the meaning, right? Now the sentence structure not only helps you understand the meaning, it also helps you identify deterministic errors. Now, what do I mean by deterministic errors? Deterministic errors are errors that have a very solid grammatical rule behind them. Okay, grammar is important because grammar is the way in which you express meaning, right? Because grammar gives you the constructs give you tools to basically express what it is that you want to express, right? So absolutely, any of the so deterministic errors can be very easily spotted if you create the sentence structure. For example, over here, it's very clear that heirloom tomatoes, there is no verb for it. Okay, that's the reason why choice A is wrong. Okay, now let's look at the answer choices which you had expressed. Okay, so once you do, now before that, let's look at steps 1 and 2. Okay, these are the two steps that need to be done on the original choice. Okay, and that is why you spend more than 50% of your time on choice A. That is the main reason. Okay, more than 50% of your time needs to be spent on choice A, so that you visualize the meaning and so that you identify all the deterministic errors, all, not one, but all the deterministic errors from the sentence. Okay, now what are the deterministic errors? All deterministic errors have been covered in the e-GMAT course in progressively increasing difficulty order. Okay, so you first have subject verb, then pronouns, then verbs, then modifiers. In modifiers also you go in that progressive difficulty order, then parallelism, then comparison. Okay, now once you have this framework from the original choice, that's when you come to analyzing the answer choices. Okay, so let's look at the answer choices now, but before that, let's take a look at what is it that you guys selected. So choice B is the correct answer, which less than 50% of the class selected. Now choice D was selected by quite a few of you. Now I want you to think about what is the contrast in choice D. So ignore choices A, B, and C, but look at choice D because that was the next popular choice here. Tell me, where is the contrast specified in choice D? Do you see the contrast in choice D? Although is not used. No contrast. And that is why choice D is wrong. No other reason for choice D to be wrong. And no other deterministic reason for choice D to be wrong. Okay. And this is the power of extracting all aspects of meaning, understanding the contrast. Again, some of you did not identify correct contrast, right? For those of you, choice D could have looked okay. Why? Because a lot of you who said that the contrast is between heirloom tomatoes and supermarket cousins, for them, choice D would have looked just fine, right? So it's not just about the although is not used. What is the intent behind although? Maybe although could have been replaced by some other word, right? The point over here is that the contrast that was there, that's no longer there. And what does that do to you? Now think about if you were given choice A and choice D. In choice A, the author is giving you the contrast on platter. The author is saying, I am going to present a contrast to you. Whereas in choice D, it would be up to the reader, up to you, whether you extract or infer any contrast. Do you see that difference? Okay. Explicitly stated versus to be extracted. Okay. Now in CR, when the author asks you, when the question asks you what can be inferred in CR, the inference that you draw may not be given to you on a platter. Okay, it will be implied. That is why you say it's implied. In SC, you have to maintain that same meaning what the author intended to communicate. Okay, very, very important. That's why each of these little things are very critical. Okay, now let's take a look at choice C. Choice C was selected by 6 people. Frankly, if you compare choices A and C, if you rejected choice A, that is the same reason, for the right reasons, that's the same reason applicable for choice C. Now, if you build, obviously people who rejected choice A and selected choice C, people who selected choice C definitely rejected choice A. But the reason why they selected C was maybe because they didn't reject choice A for the right reasons, or maybe they couldn't do the sentence structure on choice C. So again, this goes back to your ability, your core skill of being able to extract choice A. Okay. Nikita, I will share the recording with you. So definitely go through the recording because, again, I don't believe everybody else would need to understand choice A again. Okay. Yeah. And I will share the PDF with you as well. Okay. All right. Let's look at choice D, we've already looked at, right? So again, choices A and E. E has different sentence structure, but again, the issue is very much the same. There is no verb for heirloom tomatoes. Now, if you think about it, this question there is no nuanced grammar that is being used in this question. Okay. It's all a play of your core skills. Okay. So if you, now that you've gone through the solution, now that I've explained the entire solution to you, tell me what was very complicated in this sentence, because that's the introspection that you need to do. Because if you have to change something in your approach, you need to know why is the change required. Modifiers were a bit complicated, but do you have the tools, Arushi, to simplify those modifiers? It's the sentence structure that was a bit complicated, right? Extracting the meaning, sentence structure. Absolutely. Now, do you have the tools here? If you learn the tool of sentence structure, right? And if you keep it in the back, if you may have that habit of visualizing the meaning, right? All you needed to do over here was come up with that table. So let me bring back that table over here. This table over here, tomato 1, tomato 2, that's the comparison, right? And then what all we are talking about over here, right? Less flavorful, contrast. Again, the contrast needed to be explicitly stated. This is a difficult question, 700 level question, definitely. Use of hyphenation and sentence structure as a whole was a difficult part. Yes, absolutely, Dipanshu. And again, the other thing to realize with SC questions is that there are these structures which are used, which you need to be familiar with. Okay, first you need to have the tools. Secondly, how do you practice those tools? You need to have appropriate exposure to these different kinds of sentence structures on which you apply the tools, so that you get so much practice, so much focused practice, that when you go in the test environment, you don't get surprised by things that are thrown at you. And that is why, with all the application files and the practice files that we have in the course, with the right tools and with so much extensive practice that you see in Scholaranium, by the time our students get to the test environment, get to the test, nothing, a lot of what they see over there is something that they've already experienced on the e-GMAT platform, because of the exposure that we give them in the right manner. Okay, with the right tools. That is very, very important. Okay. All right. So now, in fact, okay, this is where we were talking about sentence structure, right? Sentence structure, you see that not in a single, not just in one or two files. You see that as a common thread across everything at AGMAT. Every question has has the corresponding sentence structure. Okay. Not only just the choice A, every answer choice wherever applicable. For example, over here, with choice A, we did not, with choice E, we did not simply say that, this is not parallel. Choice E, having blocked and keeps, is not parallel. We actually showed you what does it mean for it to be not parallel. Why are we saying that they are not parallel? So when you see the why visually in front of you, all of that gets cemented in your head. Okay, and each and every question is there in a particular file because that's where it belongs. Okay, there's no randomness over there. Okay, everything has a particular intent in the course. Now, another thing which I want to tell you is, because quite a few of you practice on GMAT Club, don't let the fear of missing out overburden your brain. And again, I won't go into um, uh, so I won't go into a lot of details over here. But if you just look at this question, you'll see there are 4 pages of discussion here. Okay, so 4 pages of discussion, but none of these discussion points, and I would want you to go and look at some of these discussions, and just I want you to ponder over it, that when you read articles on New York Times or Economist or Business Week, do you ask such questions, okay, to understand the meaning of the sentence, right? So whenever you see yourself asking a certain question on a certain choice, ask yourself, will you ask the same question if you were simply reading a passage or an article on these trusted journals? Okay. And then you see, how is that question helping you with understanding the meaning? Okay, that's very, very important. For example, how do you tackle the use of dash? You're not going to see dash in the in a New York Times article and think, what is that dash doing? Okay, I understand in New York Times you're not there to spot mistakes. Absolutely, in SC you're there to spot mistakes, but the first and the foremost thing that you need to do in SC is understand the meaning. Okay, that's when you don't have to worry about dash. And frankly, GMAT is not going to create an answer choice in which use of dash will be the only error. It's not a deterministic error. Okay, the correct answer of choice of question 2 is choice B. Okay, so that's another thing, right? So again, these are things which you have to keep in mind. Okay. um all right, so again, two very different 700 level questions so far, but similar process. Okay, you need to visualize, you need to understand the sentence structure. Okay, so now let's understand, um, how is it that you can build these abilities. So I spoke about master comprehension. This is what master comprehension course looks like. Okay, we start off with with building blocks of the sentence. We give you pause points. How do you understand, where do you pause to understand the meaning? And then this module 5, um, this is where we talked about the 20 sentences that you can build your ability with. Okay, I think some of you have questions about question number 2. How many of you have questions about question 2? Maybe I can go back into the details of it, because I know I kind of breezed through the answer choice analysis. So E is wrong because although is dependent clause which should come at the beginning of the sentence, but that was not the case with E. No, no, no. E is not wrong because of that. Okay, let's go back. Sorry. So if you have doubts, I don't want you to have Because I didn't cover this in detail, that's the reason why I'm going back. Okay. Choice E has a very different sentence structure. Okay. It's not that although should come at the beginning. There is nothing like that. Okay. So that's a Vamsi, that's a misunderstanding. That's a misplaced rule, I would say. Okay. The reason why E is wrong is because heirloom tomatoes, when you create the sentence structure, you will see that heirloom tomatoes does not have a verb, because grown over here is a modifier. everything else everything else, this clause and this clause, they all have their subject and verbs. So heirloom tomatoes is left without any verb. Okay, now I will share the PDF with you. So take a look at the sentence structure here. Again, if you are wondering about this, and I'm glad that you asked that question, because understanding why choices are wrong is very important. Okay, what is the correct reason for the choice being wrong is very important, because those that kind of analysis actually takes builds your ability. Okay, in fact, I have a question over here about, how do I get from 70th percentile to 90th percentile. So let me show you choice B as well, because I have a question here. Mhm. Do I not show choice B? One second, guys. Okay, no, I don't have choice B, separate slide. Okay, here's choice B. Although heirloom tomatoes grown from seeds saved during previous year appear less appetizing. So here what has happened is this appearing has been changed into a verb here, right? Than they're round, they are often. So this is the remaining part over here. So simply choice B. In choice B, we have simply changed, the author has simply changed the modifier into the verb. Absolutely, yes. The sentence structure not only helps one understand meaning, but also identify errors. Absolutely. All right. So again, I will share the PDF with you, so you have all the sentence structures. But clearly, if you are wondering about this, then that is a feedback to you that you need to build the sentence structure ability. Okay. So thank you, Vamsi. It is clear now. I'm very happy. Okay. So now let's understand how is it that you go through this, because remember, I want you to understand the core skills approach. How what does it mean to learn using core skills, right? So this is module 5, is where we have those 20 sentences split into two quizzes, wherein we push you into creating sentence structures. Okay, so I want to make sure that all e-GMAT students have done due diligence over here. Okay, now after the, so okay so yeah so I have more description over here. Building blocks of a sentence. We take a 3-word sentence you see over here, and we build a 12-word sentence over here, telling you how is it that you add more information. Because one thing is, how are long sentences formed, right? That's very, very important. So that is very, and then in the next example, or in the next file, we go from the same 12-word sentence to a 20-word sentence. Again, telling you how is it that you build those long sentences, because once you know that, you then take that very information back into your, when you have to deconstruct a long sentence. And we don't use any of the complex grammar terms. We purposely try to stay away from them, because those complex terms just make things even more difficult, make things appear as if they are something for which you need a degree to understand. No. In fact, our subject matter experts, even though they know grammar terms inside out, in our training program, we remove all those all that terminology from their conversation, because we don't want them to use that complex terminology, because that's not what the students need. What students need is the application of that. Okay, so that's very, very important. So you won't find any technical jargon anywhere. Okay. Then skill building, this is what I was talking about. You apply, so your assessment here, all of these assessments are actually SC sentences, correct SC sentences on which you apply sentence structure and you practice that. Okay, so And then you continue doing that in all of the application files. Okay, this is modifiers section module in SC course. You apply all those skills over here. Again, 140 sentences, right? Every quiz that you take, you get a feedback right away. This is what I was telling about earlier. Okay. And again, you see it's not just in a single sentence, that in a single file, that we give you sentence structures. It's throughout, that this is the thread. This is the very nervous system of the entire course. Okay. And how do you master this? Again, you don't stop your mastery of sentence structure with the course. You do this in Scholarinium as well, and which is where you get exposed to so many different sentence structures that when you actually take the test, nothing is a surprise for you. Okay. So again, you have to do this with the right intent. Okay. Now, this is where I want you to. We've talked about visualization, we've talked about sentence structure, right? Now, how does a core skills focused approach course put all of this together? For that, I want you to go through this file. This is very, very important. Okay. So log into free trial and then learn how is that the core skills focused approach will help you, because I want to make sure that you guys are using this right approach in order to prepare for your test. Okay. So very, very important. Okay. Now, another thing, now we are down to our next question here. So, another thing which is very important to understand is whenever you're reading the sentence, you don't worry about grammar at all. Okay. Your intent should be to understand the sentence to such a degree that you can explain that sentence to your friend. Okay. That's another way to think about to what level you need to understand the sentence. Okay. So, very important. Now, the next question, and I believe this is the last question. So, I stand corrected. I think earlier I said we'll be doing 4 questions. There are 3 questions here. So, next sentence has a lot of modifiers, and in fact, more convoluted than question number 2 that you just saw. But I don't want you to get scared of that. Okay. I want you to read the sentence with an intent that you are going to explain that sentence to your friend. Okay. Read it with that intent, not with the intent to solve the question. Believe me, if you read the sentence with that intent that you're going to explain it to your friend, the question solution will come automatically. Okay. So, promise you're going to read the sentence with that intent? Because if I don't, what do you say? Gear your mindset that way, then I definitely know that you're going to get scared of the sentence and you're going to just go back and forth in grammar terms. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So here is the question. Go ahead. Okay, read the sentence. Okay, so how was the sentence? Okay, so let's understand the sentence together, and then we'll see how we use that understanding to answer the question. Okay, so about 5 million acres in the United States have been invaded by leafy spurge. So when you read this part, what do you visualize? So we're going to do this visualization exercise. Okay, when you read this part, what do you visualize? About 5 million acres. What does 5 million acres tell you? You have to visualize the entire thing, Vamsi. Small piece of land or large piece of land? A huge piece of land taken over by a plant. Absolutely good. So, again, what you're doing is these bits and pieces of information, 5 million acres in the United States, you're translating that into a huge piece of land. So, when you close your eyes, when you're reading this part, you're just visualizing a vast piece of land. And then you see this part over here invaded by a leafy spurge. Now, here, absolutely right. Leafy spurge is a weed, Mahalakshmi, very right, right? So this has been taken over by this weed, right? So far so good. Then you go further. A herbaceous plant from Eurasia with milky sap. Now, this is simply, so what is this part doing? What is this blue part doing here? This is simply describing what? Describing the leafy spurge. Absolutely. Describing the weed that we had already translated that to, right? Okay. Um, a herbaceous plant from Eurasia with milky sap that gives mouth sores to cattle. Now close your eyes and think about it. What does this weed do? What does this weed do to the cattle? First of all, this weed is this herbaceous plant, right? Lots and lots of right, and it has this milky sap, and by the way, it gives milky sap is the thing that gives mouth sores to cattle. Or you can say that this weed gives mouth sores to cattle. Now, what are mouth sores? Those are little sores in your in the mouth, right? So again, it troubles cattle, right? So because mouth sores are not pleasant to have, right? Okay, so far so good. So so in your mind, you know that this, first of all, huge piece of land has been covered by weed. By the way, this weed, when consumed by cattle, gives mouth sores to cattle, so it's not comfortable for the cattle. Okay. Now, Maya Karim, we need to ask who gives the source. The weed gives the source or the milk gives the source? Very good question. Answer that question. Who gives the source, or who or what gives the source? The weed gives the source, and the milky sap gives the source. Yes, because milky sap is the part of the weed. Absolutely, Dipanshu. So eventually, it's the weed that gives the source. Absolutely. Okay. So the milky sap is the primary source, but that source exists in the plant. So you can say both the things. Milky sap of the weed gives the source, or you can say that the weed itself gives the source. Right? So both of those. So again, you have to understand the logic. You don't need any scientific knowledge, absolutely. But you have to understand what is happening over here, which is where you need to visualize. The weed has the milky sap. The milky sap gives the source, right? Which means that the weed results in the source. Now, if let's say the weed and the milk were two different entities, right? This weed over here, and I haven't drawn, I don't know what I'm drawing here, right? So if this weed and the milky sap were two different things, this was number one, and this, let's say, this milky sap was in something else, right? Something spread on the ground, for example. then you could not have linked the mouth source to the weed. In this case, the milky sap is in the weed. That is why you say that the weed itself gives the mouth source. So, very good question and very good answers. Got it? And this is where visualization comes into picture. Okay, you are visualizing each and every element over here. Now let's go further. Displacing grasses and other cattle food and rendering rangeland worthless. What does that mean? What is displacing grasses and other cattle food? The weed is displacing, absolutely. So the weed is has displaced the grasses. That's something which was already said above, right? And it's why is it rendering the rangeland worthless? Or how is it rendering the rangeland worthless? Because it gives mouth source. Absolutely. The cattle cannot consume it, right? Now, Mahalakshmi, it's not because of the invasion. It is because, let's say, the invasion happened, but cattle was able to eat that leafy spurge, right? It is then it would not have rendered the rangeland worthless. The rangeland is being rendered worthless because ls leafy spurge is not useful. And why is it not useful? Because cattle does not like to eat it. It may eat it once, but then as it starts to experience those mouth sores, it is not going to eat it unless it evolves itself to combat the mouth sores that it gives, that it gets. Right? So all of those linkages you have to make, and you make that those linkages by visualizing. Okay. Now here you see that so as Vinay is saying, the blue and the black that you see over here, these are different parts of the sentence that you will automatically in your head create the sentence structure. This is how you're going to create the sentence structure. And now when you've created the sentence structure, your goal is to visualize the meaning. Your goal is to understand everything from it so that you can explain it to your friend. Okay, and now when you're explaining this to your friend, this is how you're going to see. You will tell them that there's this milky sap in leafy spurge, right? And when the cattle eat, so again you will start from this, that there's this huge piece of land that has been covered by these weeds. And by the way, when there is this milky sap in these weeds, when the cattle eats this these weeds, they develop mouth sores, and because of that they are not able to eat food anymore, which means that this entire huge span of rangeland has been rendered worthless. Okay, so now you know everything about the sentence because you have been able to explain this sentence to your friend in easy to understand terms, right? Because you have visualized the sentence. Now when you get to the answer, now you figure out, okay, what was wrong with this choice, with the original choice, okay, with this level of understanding. And then you take that information to the individual answer choices. Okay, so let's look at choice A. Why is choice A wrong? And believe me, when you were reading choice A, you were not reading choice A with an intent to find errors. You were reading choice A with the intent to understand everything. So a way which I often tell my students is that when you're reading the sentence, forgive the author forgive the author with regards to any error that they may have made. Okay, you give the author that benefit of doubt that maybe they don't know the grammar constructs, but it's my job to extract to understand everything that the author has said. Okay, when you go to second step, that's when you basically go into the details of, okay, why has the author expressed it in correct manner, in the right manner or not. That's when you bring your grammatical knowledge, and then you basically help the author understand the mistakes that they have made, and then you go into the answer choices. Okay, so um, displacing and rendering. So displacing and rendering, they are not logically parallel. Why? Because rendering is the result. Okay, displacing is what is what the leafy spurge has done, right? But rendering is the result of that. And again, you know that. Why? Because you've understood the entire sentence. Okay, that's why choice A is wrong. Any doubts about choice A? About 10 of you have had selected choice A. Now, do you see why choice A is wrong? And again, it's very important to understand why each and every choice is wrong. Displacing doesn't need to be a verb, Arushi. Okay? That is not why choice A is wrong. Because what choice A, because everything has been accounted for in choice A. There's no subject that's hanging without a verb. Okay? If displacing and rendering were logically parallel, then this sentence would have been fine. Yes, this is not a verb, yes, but it didn't need to be a verb. That's what I'm saying. Is the present perfect necessary? Have been invaded by leafy spurge. Again, it's not the matter of whether it's necessary or not. It is there and it's not wrong. What the sentence is saying is that they have been invaded. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong in it. So they were invaded and they are still invaded, and there's the effect of that invasion is still on. In fact, this tense is actually correct over here. Okay. Okay, the next one here have been invaded by leafy spurge, a herbaceous plant that gives mouth sores to cattle. And again, this is where we have to answer that question. People who rejected choice B would have thought that, okay, that gives is now talking about the herbaceous plant, right? So is that correct? Because the original choice said that the milky sap gives mouth sores. But again, that's where we have to understand the logic. Logically, both make sense. And that's where visualization is very important. Okay. So you can't blindly just say that, okay, because in the original choice, milky sap was mentioned to give mouth sores to cattle. So, but in choice B, it is the plant that gives mouth sores, so it must be wrong. You cannot blindly do that. Okay, this means that you're just applying grammar, you're not going deep into the meaning of the sentence. So again, when you see yourself do that, that's a very solid warning signal for you that you are not going deep into the meaning. And again, it's one thing that I want all of you to understand is that meaning doesn't come focus on the right rigor on meaning doesn't come overnight, doesn't happen overnight. You have to be very disciplined about it. And I'll give you an example from my personal life. Okay, so and Neha, I will explain to you why displacing and rendering are not parallel. But let me finish my school of thought here. um, Everybody knows that you need to eat healthy. You need to be disciplined about eating. Don't overeat. Don't overindulge, right? And I know for sure that for me, I have to kind of eat at 80%, till the time I'm 80% full, and I need to finish my meal with that. So not overeat. But that's something that I know. But do I always apply that? Am I able to always apply that? No, right? It's a very simple thing. Eat till 80% of your capacity. And that is for me. Again, I'm not saying for everybody, right? But for me, that is a very important thing. But despite knowing that, I need to be reminded every day that Pile, you need to do that. Okay. So again, what I'm saying is it's easy to say. I'm not saying that because I've spent these last 1.5 hours telling you focus on meaning, visualize meaning, the next sentence that you take on, you will start to visualize meaning all of a sudden. No, you will not. Okay. And you will obviously go into the thing of, okay, let me quickly read it. Let me look at the answer choices. That um that nat- that that will be your natural instinct. Okay. But if you go through, if there is somebody reminding you of that again and again every time that you're solving the question, that is when you will be able to apply that dedicated effort. You will be able to convert this into a habit. Okay. So it is not going to be easy, but that is where we are there. That is where the course is. Okay. So that is the intent behind that. Okay. Now, Neha, let me come back to your question here. You're saying, why are displacing and rendering not parallel in choice A? They are grammatically parallel. Okay. That is absolutely there. Both are verb ing modifiers, they are grammatically parallel. But logically, that's where you have to think about displacing grasses and rendering rangeland. If you had and therefore rendering rangeland worthless, then this sentence would have been fine. If over here you had therefore or thereby, something that is connecting these two in that cause and effect relationship, this is the cause and this is the effect, then the sentence would have been fine. Okay, but right now when you say displacing and rendering, they are both at the same level. You're giving equal amount of importance to both of those. Okay, there is no cause and effect. That is why this sentence is wrong. Okay, good, I'm glad. It is a list now. Absolutely, Vinay. Tanvi is asking, in this sentence structure, is displacing modifying gives? Um, let's see. Have been invaded by leafy spurge. No, this is modifying the entire preceding clause. Okay, you don't have to think about whether it's modifying just this part here or whether it's modifying this entire part over here. So essentially, have been invaded by leafy spurge, a herbaceous plant from grammatic. Okay, okay, so this is actually modifying this one over here. That gives mouth sores to cattle. Yes, because of that. Because why is it not modifying 5 million acres? Because it doesn't make sense for 5 million acres to displace grasses. That part is wrong here, right? But over here, because it gives mouth sores, that is why it is. Hmm, no. Let me. Okay, hold on. Let me just read this little carefully. A herbaceous plant that gives mouth sores to cattle displacing. It doesn't make sense to modify this part here. Why? Because by giving mouth source, it's not displacing. So logically, that doesn't make sense, right? And then it doesn't make sense to modify this aspect also. So that is also illogical. So yes, so I stand corrected. Even if we fix this issue, then also this issue will be there because displacing will not have, it doesn't modify anything, anything appropriately. So that is also an issue. Now let's see how that is corrected in choice B. That is corrected in choice B. How? Because leafy spurge has two verbs now. Through that, it has gives verb and displaces. So that is how it has been corrected. Yes. So thank you. Thank you. Who asked me that question? Tanvi. Yes. Thank you, Tanvi, for asking that question. So got it? So here displacing. So let me explain this to you. And see, it takes a little bit of effort to understand what is happening here. And it's very important to understand everything that's wrong with the sentence. Okay. So that's very important, especially when you are in your preparation mode. So displacing as a verb ing modifier. So first of all, this issue is there. Displacing and rendering, they are not at the same level. Okay. Secondly, displacing, you have two clauses before it. This one and this one here. Okay. Number one, number two here. Milky sap that gives mouth sores to cattle displacing. Now, milky sap, first of all, is not displacing grasses, right? Because whenever you have a verb ing modifier, it has to be linked. It has to make sense with the subject of the preceding clause. Now, here, first of all, milky sap is not the thing that has displaced grasses. So that part is wrong. Secondly, even if, let's say, that were fine, even the context of this information, what has mouth source got to do with displacing grasses, right? They are logically not linked. That is why this linkage is wrong. Okay, but then there is this other preceding clause as well, the entire big clause. About 5 million acres in United States have been invaded by leafy spurge displacing grasses. So what I'm reading is this part here, this part here, and this part here. About 5 million acres in the United States have been invaded by leafy spurs, displacing grasses. Okay, that is not logical. Why? Because 5 million acres is not displacing grasses. Again, the verb ing modifier needs to make sense with the subject of the preceding clause. Got it? Now, this issue has been corrected in choice B. In choice B, it's the leafy spurs that gives mouth sores. It's the leafy spurs that displaces grasses. Okay?
Again, invasion would have been fine, Neha, but again, this is the rule that you are applying over here, and that's the grammatical understanding that you need to have, that the verb ing modifier needs to make sense with the subject of the clause. Okay, so while invasion part is correct, but the subject over here, the 5 million acres, that is not correct. Okay. So again, look at the verb ing modifiers file in the free trial, and you should, I believe we do cover that aspect in the free trial. Otherwise, it is covered in the modifiers module in the SC course. Okay. All right. So choice C again has similar issues displacing, and that gives they are not grammatically parallel. Okay. And again, um, the other aspect over here, having and displacing. So even if you thought that having and displacing, these two are grammatically parallel, so they are fine, but then again, they are not part of the same list. Why? Because possessing, having gives you the sense of possession, and displacing gives you a sense of doing an action. Possession and and doing an action, they cannot be part of the same list. Okay. So again, a lot of parallelism going on over here, but all from logical aspect. Nothing over here except for that. The only nuanced rule that we applied over here is the fact that verb ing modifier as an action modifier needs to make sense with the subject of the preceding clause. Okay, but other than that, everything is grammar, which is common sense grammar. Okay. Choice D, again, same thing over here. 5 million acres displaces and renders. That is absolutely illogical. Similar issue that was there in choice A. But in choice A, we figured that out because of verb ing issue. Okay, verb ing needs to make sense with the subject. Here, the subject itself is 5 million acres for displaces and renders, and that is illogical. Okay. Choice E is wrong because there is no verb for 5 million acres. And again, milky sap displacing grasses, that doesn't make sense. Okay. So again, if you look at this sentence, main thing over here is visualizing the meaning. Okay. Yes, Mamsi, go ahead. Ask your doubt. And while you type your doubt, let me just, yeah. So again, six pages of content over here. Let me go back to choice D here. Yeah, go ahead. Here's choice D. And this is one of the most difficult sentences. Okay, so there's lots going on over here, but a lot of that, it doesn't need to be very difficult for you if you do it right the first time, which is if you focus on visualizing. If you don't, then you will get confused, very, very confused in this. Herbaceous plant displaces. So for that clause, herbaceous plant should be the subject. So Vamsi, you're asking about, so this is about sentence structure, right? A herbaceous plant from Eurasia containing milk sap that gives mouth sores to cattle. So this part actually ends here. Okay. So I'll have to write the sentence structure for it. So Vamsi, why don't you do this? Why don't you write this out in an email and send it to support@e-gmat.com. Now, again, you may get a response saying that you need to post it in the forum, but I will let the support team know that you will be sending this out. Actually, let me see if I have this, if I can find the detailed video solution for this one, which I should be able to find. That video solution should have sentence structure. So you should be able to, as soon as you see the sentence structure, you will get it. Okay. So yeah, so let me find the video solution for you. Okay. All right. So again, three different kinds of questions. You have to visualize. Okay. And Vinay, thank you for chiming in. Understand the meaning. Okay. Because that's what is going to give you pointers. Absolutely, Vinay. Okay. Spot on. Visualizing coming to an end, visualizing contrast and comparison. And then in question number 3, visualizing sequence of events. What is happening? Who's doing what? Okay. So that you have a very solid way of rejecting answer choices, incorrect answer choices. And again, if you look at the 6 long pages of discussion on this question on GMAT Club, There's not, and I'm not averse to discussion. Absolutely. We discussed so many points today, right? But all those points were about meaning, or they were about deterministic errors, right? Verb ing modifier needs to make sense with the subject, right? But none of those were about, what if I remove the appositive? Would the meaning be clear? Why do you have to remove anything from the sentence? If the author has mentioned something in the sentence, it's worthy. It's there for a reason. You need to understand what it's saying. You can't simply remove things. What does a positive mean? I don't know. Why do I need to care about what a positive means, right? So again, you have to understand, you need to visualize the meaning properly, right? So again, visualize it through sentence structure, through understanding each and every part of the sentence with the intent that you should be able to explain the meaning to the author, to your friend. Okay, if you do that, and in order for you to do that, you will need to spend more than 50% of your time on the original choice, and that is where we started from. You all understand meaning is important, but what does it mean for understanding the intended meaning of the author? You need to spend majority of your time on choice A, and we did that, right? We spent so much more time on choice A that evaluating answer choices then becomes a cakewalk. Okay, and that is when you will be able to answer questions, difficult questions, correctly, and questions quickly, because you will not do that back and forth. Okay, and again, why was this question difficult? This question is difficult, and this is one of the most difficult questions in SC. Okay, but you guys were able to attack that question. Why? Because you had the tools in your arsenal. Okay, or you are developing those tools. You are asking the right kinds of questions, and that's very important. Okay, so visualizing answer choices, that's also very important. Okay, in each answer choice, and you guys made me think today, right? For choice number A, right? That, okay, what is happening over here, right? So that is very important. And as you build your visualization muscle, you will and you will build your visualization through the e-GMAT course. And as you do that, your accuracy will improve, and you will be able to see such kind of improvement. There's a student who just asked me that, I've cleared medium cementing, right? But how will I get, and after I clear 3 hard cementing quizzes, I'll get to 70th percentile. But how do I get to 90th percentile? And my response: you will need to figure out, when you are at 50% accuracy in hard questions, 55% accuracy in hard questions, you get to 70th percentile ability. Beyond that, you have to continue to remove the errors that you are making. You have to understand why is it that you're making the errors, and you do that by doing strategic review of the incorrect questions and also of the correct questions. And as you build your weak points, right, you may find that, okay, there are certain sentence structures that really throw me off, and I end up making mistakes in those sentence structures. Or you may find that, certain sentences that use this noun plus noun modifier construction, that just throws me off, right? So those are the things that you have to identify, and you have to take that input over there, which with the goal to, let's say, get to 70% accuracy in hard questions, because that's what you need for 90th percentile ability. And again, these are actual charts. All of this stuff is available to you through Scholaranium. Okay, in hard questions. Okay, this student in his last 30 attempts was at 58% accuracy. So this student was already at that 70th uh, percentile. Okay, in the last 16 to 30 attempts, right? So this student then practice on 15 questions, right? But that was very targeted, dedicated practice. And he was able to get to that 85% accuracy, okay? Way above 90th percentile ability. Okay. And but all this while, the time to answer questions was also reducing. And again, timing goes hand in hand. Okay, that's very, very important to understand. It's not one or the other. If one is happening, if your accuracy is improving, and if it's improving, and if you're focusing on the right stuff, your timing will come down. Okay, it's a consequence. So again, when I was solving questions after going through the course, I was able to identify not one but 2 or 3 errors in answer choices, and you guys saw that today, right? And previously I did not have that level of clarity. And again, you can go through the interviews over here. So what does it take? what would your journey look like? And now this is something which I want all of you, especially the e-GMAT students, to focus on. Why? Because I want to make sure that you're utilizing each and every aspect of the course, right? So master comprehension course, we've done that. We've gone through that. You're going to learn sentence structure here, and that's very critical, your visualization. And I want you to not just limit these skills when you are during your study session. I want you to apply that in your day-to-day um, comprehension. Okay, any article that you read, apply sentence structure while you're reading that article. Any email that you write, any email that you read, be in that mode. Okay, if you see a long sentence, how has the author composed that long sentence? Okay, it's only when you incorporate your sentence structure approach, your visualization approach in your day to day living, will it become a habit. And believe me, that's an amazing life skill to have. Okay. Um, don't worry about timing at this stage. Okay, absolutely not. You're building a skill. Okay, then again, same thing over here. Course, then SC course, this is where you're going to learn all the grammar that you need. Again, grammar is very important. Okay, you need to know the right constructs. Okay, and you will continue to build your hone and your visualization and sentence structure skills. Okay. um, Feedback, you get this personalized feedback, take that seriously. I will want to see everybody score 100% in concept quizzes. No, nothing below 100%. Okay, that's very important. Okay, if you don't score that, figure out why is it that you made the mistake. Okay, this is for concept files. Now, when you are revise when you score less than 80%. Okay, I would say revise when you score less than 100% also. Revision is very, very important because, for example, this verb sequencing quiz absolutely needs to be revised. Now, when you're revising every quiz, we know how important that is, which is why we track that and we give you that input. Okay, if I when I'm evaluating a student account to see whether the student is exhibiting good habits or not, scores is what I look at. Okay, then I come and look at, okay, you can get a lower score, but if you haven't done a review over here, then that means you're not taking that score seriously. And my feedback to you is, friend, you need to buckle up. You need to review. Making mistakes is fine, but not figuring out why you made mistakes, you can't blame me for not helping you out. I told you needed to review. Okay, very important. These habits are very, very critical. Okay, and that is why we have built the technology to track that, to give you that information. Now here, the student spent only 2 minutes 34 seconds. Okay, he must have answered two questions incorrectly over here, right? But the student didn't spend enough time. So my feedback to the student will be, yes, you did the review, but you just went through the motions. You did not spend enough time reviewing the quiz. So these are things, these are habits that you need to continue to demonstrate. Okay, but yeah, here, winning behavior, he did review it. But my thing is, you didn't review enough. You didn't spend enough time. The second thing over here is, for every question, you get these stats. How much time did you take, and what was the time that more than 50% of people took, right? So here, I would say the student took a lot longer. So the student, yes, he first of all, he answered the question incorrectly. So now the student needs to think about, okay, why is it that I took longer when other students did not take that long, right? So you have to now eliminate the source of confusion that you had. Now, if, let's say, the median time was, let's say, 2 minutes and 15 seconds, then I would not have worried about, why I took longer. Then I would have simply understood, okay, why is it that I answered this question incorrectly? So again, why you took longer, that's very important when you compare your timing stats. And again, we know this is important. That is the reason why we have painstakingly built this technology, so that you have all that information. Okay. um, so the other thing is, if you simply look at just these questions, okay, and again, the student looked at these two questions and reviewed, but the student answered this question correctly but took a lot of time. Okay, And again, if you compare the median time for this question, if the median time was, let's say, median time would be less than 3 minutes for sure, right? Let's say if it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds, then definitely the student needs to figure out, yes, I answered the question correctly, but I took a lot longer. Why is it that I took that much longer? So you have all this data at your disposal. You have to use that data very well. Okay. How many of you have Apple Watch or some kind of fitness watch, smartwatch? Okay, I have, so it's only, yes, right? Now, when you have those move rings, so it's very interesting that the days I don't do enough workout, enough warm up in the morning, by 10 a.m., my watch tells me, Payal, your move rings have not moved much today, right? So you need to, you were way ahead yesterday than you are today. So do something, those reminders. The watch is telling me that, technology is telling me that, but it's up to me. What do I do with that information? Okay, for the longest time, up until 6 months back, I simply ignored that. But now recently I've started to take that seriously, and as soon as I see that indication, I do a set of curls, or squats or something to get my move, to get some calories in, right? So the technology exists, technology is giving you information. It all depends on how you absorb that information. What is it that you do with that information? The same way we are giving you, e-GMAT platform is giving you all these stats. It's upon you. How do you use those stats? Okay, and these stats are important. That's the reason why otherwise, why did we need to do this, right? Again, the last module of sentence correction course is the cementing module. I want every student to go through this module in excruciating detail, because after you learn all the concepts, the application, the skills, you have to now put it all in action in an exam like environment. Okay, that's where scholarinium comes into picture. So you need to know how to utilize that. That's very important. You get all your metrics in here. What is it that you need to do? How is it that you need to do strategic review and all that stuff, right? So all of that stuff is done. Okay, so master comprehension, sentence correction, cementing, and test readiness in Scholaranium. So you have the entire process laid out over here. Okay, so again, I'm not going into the details over here. Frankly, these are the kinds of charts that you see. A lot of analytics here. You first do medium cementing. If you falter over here, you then again fix your issues, and then you prove to the system that yes, you can answer questions correctly, confidently. Okay, and then you move on to hard cementing. Okay, again, the expert AI creates revision lists for you, different kinds of revision lists, and I want you to take all of those properly, to take feedback from all of those properly, and do appropriate strategic review. For example, did the timing have any influence? Was there any luck factor? Did you rush through certain questions, and that's why you got those questions wrong? Okay, for example, this question here, you got it correct, but took a lot of time, which means the kind of review that you need to do is a took longer review, which is different from a strategic review. So again, tell me, how many of you think about review in this manner, and how many of you get a list of questions that you answered incorrectly or correctly, to see, okay, what kind of review you need to do? Okay, ask those questions. Okay, because you deserve to have something like this if you have to prepare for GMAT in an efficient and effective manner. Both of those are very, very important. You shouldn't take 6 months to prepare for GMAT. If you do it right, regardless of where you're at, you can prepare for GMAT within 3 months. You don't have to dedicate 6 months or a year of your life, or sometimes 2 to 3 years of your life preparing for GMAT. No, there are a lot more important things, right? Which is why we have spent the effort in making sure that you get all the right tools, so that you can do things right within the right amount of time. And again, you can go through these screenshots at your own convenience. But again, there's no surprise when you see all of those analytics, when you see the core skills focused approach. It's not a surprise that we account for 60% of all reviews that are posted on GMAT Club, and there are 9 different partners on GMAT Club. Okay, so Again, check out the free trial. Verb ing modifiers, as I was talking about, C3 concept file. I think this covers the verb ing modifiers, the concept that we were talking about, in terms of the modifier needs to make sense with the subject of the preceding clause. So you can look at that. Again, all of these concepts are very, very interesting. Similarly, um, we have a very new, actually this is not the latest free trial module for critical reasoning. This is the old one. So yeah, that's about it. We are at the end of this session, so let me open these up over here. I would want all of you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I routinely post, different kinds of posts, motivating you in order so that because all of us need that kind of motivation, right? So definitely connect with me, connect with Rajat. So you have our LinkedIn accounts here. We have lots of students, alumni. Oh, you don't know my okay? My name is Payal Tandon. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT. It's my voice that you hear in almost all the courses. Okay. All right. So I think that's about it. Here you have the session PDF, so you can download the session PDF here. And I would definitely want you to tell me how you like this session. Definitely tell me that. What did you like in this session? How has that changed the way that you're going to prepare for SD? Does that give you more confidence? And definitely give, if you could rate the session, I would appreciate that as well. And you were a wonderful audience. Truly enjoyed conducting this session for you. And for those of you who haven't taken the SC diagnostic, please click on SC diagnostics link over here so that you can take it. It's a very interesting diagnostic. One question, but you'll get to learn a lot from just how you attempted that question. And that's the level of rigor which you see in the course. Visualization, crux issue for me, absolutely, Mrinal. Visualization, if get that, then everything in SC is going to be a cakewalk. In fact, that's the very foundational skill that goes into CR, that goes into RC. In fact, as some of you may know about GMAT focus coming in, right? So GMAT focus, the test that's going to come in second quarter, third quarter, right? It is not going to have SC, and that's not a worry for me. It's just that I don't want people to not build their comprehension muscle. So we are going to make sure that students go through the right kind of material. That is, master comprehension course is still going to be a very important thing for verbal section, when SC is not there, because that's the very important core skill that you need to have for CR, for RC, and for data insights. I mean, data insights, very, very critical. Comprehension is very critical for that. Neha, you cannot buy a specific module in e-GMAT. Why? Because it's the entire ecosystem that works, okay, that works together, right? So you cannot buy a specific module, but you can buy it for, let's say, 2 months, for 4 months, right? So you can buy it for a specific duration of time, because as you saw, Scholaranium has a different intent, your foundation courses have different intent, your mocks have a very different intent, your personalized study planner has a very different intent, but it's all of those things which work in cohesion that lead you, that takes you to that 90th percentile ability. Okay. All right, so thank you very much. Good luck for your GMAT prep, and let us know if you have any questions, any way in which we can help you. Absolutely, Vinay, go ahead. Okay, you were not able to follow your PSP in this last week, all right? Should I restart it? Vinay, why don't you send us an email at support@e-gmat.com? Reason being that when you say should you restart it, do you mean by should you rebuild your PSP? PSP gives you the sequence in which you need to be doing stuff. Now, if let's say, so what were you supposed to do last week? Let's say if you were supposed to prepare for SC, right? That's okay. So wherever you were at, if you have a pause in your prep, and again, life happens. I understand that you may get busy at work, some critical assignment comes your way, or there's some personal commitment that you need to attend to. Life happens. But what is it that you do when that happens? What you have to do is you have to do revision, a little bit of revision, so that you don't expect yourself to start off at the same level. So let's say you are at, so tell me, what is a section that you did when you left off? Modifiers. So whichever file you left off at, do the quizzes of all the files before that. Let's say you left off at verb ing modifier. So do a concept practice quiz of the previous, the last concept practice quiz. Do that so that you get yourself refreshed. Do the practice application file so that you get back in the swing of it, and then you do the next file. Okay, so you don't have to restart from the beginning. What you do is you just pick up pick up from where you left off, but you do appropriate revision. And it's very similar to when, let's say, we have a long break from our regular working out, regular exercise regimen, right? You do lose some strength, but you, if you do appropriate warm up, if you build up to where you were at, you will definitely regain your strength back, right? So it's all about starting at the right level. That is what it is. Okay. But I would say, yes, life happens, but if it starts to happen very frequently, then you have to make certain changes in your life. Okay. So once in a while it's okay, but if you start to see the trend like 1 week off, 1 week on, that's not going to be good for your prep. And this is for everybody. Okay. So then you have to make some major changes. How do we get the personalized improvement plan, Tanvi? Write to support at e-gmat.com and we will look at where you're at. Personalized improvement plan, the hyper specific improvement plan, comes about when you are done with the course and when you let's say you have done medium cementing, you've done hard cementing, now you're at, let's say, 70th percentile ability, right? You need to get to 60th percentile. That's where we'll give you hyper specific study plans. Or let's say you are done with SC, but now you were already pretty close in CR, so we'll look at where you're at, and then we are going to give you a specific sequence in which you should be doing things. Okay. Does e-GMAT have any plans for conducting focus study groups or live sessions? Yes, something will be coming soon. Hitesh is asking, generally, when we wanted to do revision, what files I should focus on or solve some questions. Again, depends on where you're at in your prep, right? If you are in stage one, which is when if you're going through the SC course, in that case, you should look at, so as I was telling Vinay, if you are at second part of the module, second part of modifiers, then you review the previous part of modifiers, do the concept practice quiz, do the practice SC questions, okay, in that module itself. If you are in cementing stage, then you make a quiz of previously incorrect answers, previously solved incorrect questions, right? And you solve those, right? So it's about just taking up where you're at and then just creating some warm-up exercises before you get started. Okay. What should be the approach 1 week before the GMAT? So Tanvi, write to us. Absolutely. We have strategy experts who can take a look at your account and who can tell you how ready you are for your exam and who can tell you the last minute tips. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And again, anytime you have any question, just write to us. We are there to help you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So good luck, everyone, and see you on my LinkedIn. Okay. Bye bye. And see you on the GMAT platform, right?